All right, I am so excited. I am here today with Brooke Bedell. Brooke is a personal chef and the owner of Red Fennel Kitchen based in South Boston. She graduated from Boston University with a dual degree in neuroscience and computer science, all while continuing her passion for cooking. She worked as a data engineer for 6 months post grad before taking a leap of faith to pursue her love of food by running Red Fennel. Now she works as a personal chef full time and is excited to see what the future holds for her and her business. Welcome, Brooke. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. And I think this is such a beautiful timing because now you're about a year out of school. So you're
Yeah.
still so fresh from the collegiate experience, but at the same time, you do have work experience and the sort of professional working world under your belt. So it's a beautiful topic to talk about non-traditional work today. So, as I said, you're a recent college grad, but you do also have work experience. When you were in college, when you were especially in your senior year, kind of getting ready to enter the workforce, what was kind of your view and perception of like the working world? What were you being told? What was going on in your classes? Like, what was the sort of zeitgeist around working?
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, and not even in college, but also just growing up in middle and high school as well, I feel like there was this expectation of going into a 9 to 5, going into the corporate world and just having that stability. I mean, you have a salary job, you have the benefits, and that was kind of always the main goal. And I feel like because of that, there are a lot of things that I avoided when I was going into college just because I was so set on that goal. So there were things I was passionate about, like cooking or like English, even that I strayed away from just because I was so focused on that end goal of getting into 9 to 5 that I was avoiding anything I was really passionate about and so focused on that. I think in America specifically, that hustle culture is such a big thing that you see every day, even in my generation, still, as people are even moving towards non-traditional work, there's still that hustle mindset of, you have to spend 12 hours a day just working and putting on the grind. And I feel like it took a long time for me to realize that that's not the only path.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you say that because I think that that's an experience that a lot of people share, and I would even go so far as to say a lot of women share, is that our interests are not, oh, I shouldn't generalize, but I should say that sometimes it can seem like our interests that are a little bit more in the arts or things that are less like data focused, it seems like those are the things that are sort of pushed aside. And so as a result, I feel like a lot of people sort of tailor their college experience, especially when you think about these are the stepping stones that are going to determine what jobs I'm qualified to apply for going forward. So it's really interesting to hear how much, even as someone who is such a recent college grad, that was still such an impactful sort of system running in the background while you were making these decisions. And so I'm really curious because TikTok obviously exploded during 2020, which was during your collegiate experience, I believe. And so it seems like that has really sort of, as much as YouTube was present and it has always been this sort of background, like, oh, yeah, you can make money from YouTube. I feel like TikTok made it like that much more accessible because we had it in our phones, we had it in our hands. So I'm really curious to hear, like, going through again your like collegiate experience because TikTok was growing at the same time that you were preparing to enter the workforce. How did that play into either your decisions, or did you know of people around you whose decisions were potentially being impacted and they were talking about it because there was this like almost entire new way of making yourself seen and of making a living for yourself being played out right in front of us every day?
hmm Social media it's definitely tailored to the person that's using the phone. And I think that that makes a huge difference because in college, I was on the side of TikTok that was very focused on, well, here's how you can still enjoy your life with a 9 to 5, and here's a day in my life at my corporate job. And so there were people that were getting popular on TikTok and making money from TikTok, but they still had this full-time job. And it wasn't really until I left my full-time job and started doing what I'm doing now that my social media shifted too. And I'm seeing more people that are doing the same thing I'm doing and getting successful in that way too. And it's hard because it almost gives you a little bit of hope that you could end up in the same spot that they are. But there's also that other side of, well, these are the one percenters on TikTok who are getting really famous and they're making money from this creator fund. So it's kind of back and forth. But I think TikTok gives such a good opportunity if you are really consistent and you put in the effort with it, you get the reward from it. And there's so many people that have left their jobs and are doing TikTok and social media full time and are making far more than they ever made at a 9 to 5. So I think it really depends how you shape your own algorithm too.
That's so interesting to hear because I kind of forget about seeing that type of content. It really just goes to show how specific the content, TikTok specifically, because you pretty much operate not necessarily exclusively on a For You page, but you pretty much operate on that page that is showing you a mix of what you do follow, but also content that's similar to what you engage with. So it's really interesting to hear how even like the posts that you were seeing and the type of content that you were seeing changed over the course of that personal transition that you went through. Okay, so that's super interesting. I know that I've kind of focused a lot on TikTok for the last couple of questions, but since you brought up your personal transition, going from 9 to 5 into now you own your own small business, which is so exciting. I would love to hear a little bit about if your perception of the working world has changed now that you have some time of owning your own business under your belt, now that you've kind of made this transition, and particularly now that the responsibility of your income is now much more in your control. That can be both freeing and a little bit scary at times.
Yeah. I think before when I was working the full-time job, I had this idea that running my own business meant that I would work less. And I think that's probably a common misconception that people have. They just assume, like, oh, you're making your own schedule. You can do whatever you want, take as many trips as you want, schedule yourself. But it's completely the opposite. I feel like now that I don't have that rigid schedule and I'm making a schedule for myself, as someone that does have a very large work ethic, I find myself wanting to work all of the time and, scheduling myself for more hours than I would in a 9 to 5. But the difference is I feel far less drained when I'm doing the work I'm doing now versus the work I used to do as a data engineer. And so no matter, if I am working more than those 8 hours, it doesn't feel the same. I don't come home exhausted. I come home feeling more energized and more excited about what the next day is going to bring. And I think that if people knew that more and like people put that out there more, maybe more people would turn toward their passion and focus on their passion rather than focusing on stability. And of course, stability is great and everyone is looking for it in some way, shape, or form. But I've now gotten to a point about 6 months into the business as well that I have been able to find that stability and feel, financial stability, but also mental stability and figuring out my routine. And so once you get to that point, I have no regrets from leaving the full-time job. And I think it would take a lot for me to have to go back to that.
Yeah, it reminds me of the phrase like, um, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, which I think is a little bit false, but I don't think it's necessarily wrong. I think
Mhm.
there is that element of like, exactly like you said, you will still work. You will probably work more if you're working towards something that you love. But at the same time, it's almost like you're continuously filling your energetic cup. Whereas it sounds like if you're in a position that doesn't necessarily align with your passions, I think we can agree at this point that as a data engineer, you were maybe not totally aligned with what you wanted to be doing,
Yeah.
then that was very energetically draining. And so there is
Mhm.
that like qualifier on the idea of like, you'll never work a day in your life if you do what you love. It's like you will never work to that point of like, oh, like every once in a while, but it's not that constant like slog through the mud. I have to just get to the end of the day, end of the week, because then it's like, well, get to the end of what eventually. Um, but it's so great to hear that now, pursuing your passion, you are feeling so much more energized. And even though you do feel like you're working more, you're again sort of constantly energizing yourself. I imagine constantly getting ideas for new things and feeling very like secure and settled in what you have going so that then you can continue to grow, which is absolutely beautiful. And I would love to hear a little bit about um, if there is this sort of maybe misunderstanding or maybe generalization about, sort of this new wave of workers, like that sort of Gen Z who has entered the workforce, and this idea that they're maybe like not as interested in the 9 to 5 job. I would love to hear, like, do you think based on, your experiences with friends, people that sort of interact with and see, do you think that your generation is kind of the one that's really making that big shift, taking that action to say, you know what, we are pursuing our passions now, like we are pursuing this non-traditional work because we're not getting what you used to get from this like traditional 9 to 5, like that doesn't cut it anymore, so I might as well pursue my passion. Do you feel like that's something that you're seeing as someone who is in that generation?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think the 9 to 5 itself has changed between my parents' generation and my current generation. But I think in my generation, we have social media and we can see what other people are doing. And that's something that our parents did not have. My parents didn't know that there was a choice besides their 9 to 5 because they didn't have this screen showing them all of these other options or all of these other things that they could be doing in their 20s. Whereas now, that's what you see every day. You see people that are in your age group, you see them traveling, you see them doing all of these different jobs. And you kind of open up your own mind to, all right, well, if they're doing this, why can't I do the same thing? And so I don't think it's anything that has to do with the 9 to 5, but I think it's my generation seeing all of these opportunities and understanding their own potential and seeing if someone who's also 22, 23 is doing this and they're successful, why can't that be me too? And I think people are a lot more comfortable taking that leap of faith now and putting themselves out there, especially with social media, than they used to be. And as detrimental as social media can be to young people, I think it's also open doors.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's such a great point too, is seeing what's out there and seeing what's out there beyond your immediate community, which is what, our parents had, is they would talk to their friends, and you're sort of the, what do they say, you're the culmination of like the 5 people you spend the most time
Yeah.
with. And so if you're all doing the same thing, that's what you're going to see, that's what you're going to know, without this additional exposure that social media gives us. It's so interesting. So this has been so interesting. I want to just keep going forever, but I would love to hear, as sort of your final thoughts on this whole concept of non-traditional work and the way that the workforce is sort of shifting and changing. What advice would you offer to people? Let's say this most recent college graduating class of 2025, they're all getting out there, sending out their resumes. What advice would you offer to them?
Yeah. I think if someone, is listening to this or reading this and they are in a 9 to 5, I don't want anyone to feel like they have to leave that for these other opportunities. There's a lot to say about working a 9 to 5. There are a lot of pros. And if you're not comfortable, taking that leap yet, that is okay. There is a long time that I would have, not left my job for anything. So I think if someone's listening and they feel that pressure, just give yourself some grace. It's okay and your time will come, and you're at a stage where you're so young that even if the opportunity doesn't come now, it might come when you're 30, it might come when you're 40. There are so many people even on social media that have gotten famous in their 50s and 60s. So really just giving yourself some grace, taking your time to, think things through, and just doing what you love.
Yay. Oh, I love that. Especially doing what you love. I think that that is the most important thing. I think that that is sort of the driving idea behind Gen Z in the workforce is, I want to do what I love. And I've now seen that it's possible to both live the life that I want to live and support myself doing that by doing what I love. Awesome. Okay. Are you ready for the baker's dozen?
I am ready.
Yay. Okay. So Baker's Dozen is 13 rapid fire question and answers, just to help the audience get to know you a little bit better.
All
Okay.
right.
All right. So what is in your line of sight at this moment?
Right now, I am looking at my empty coffee cup.
That is the sign of an afternoon meeting.
Yeah.
Analog or digital?
Digital.
What is your favorite part of your morning?
Favorite part of my morning, breakfast. Big breakfast person. I love a giant breakfast.
What is the best thing you ate in the last week? Maybe one of your breakfasts?
Oh, I had actually the best pad thai that I've had in Boston. It was takeout. Wish I remember where I got it from, but it was so good.
Oh, love a good pad thai. Who would play you in a movie about your life?
Sabrina Carpenter.
Yes.
Definitely Sabrina Carpenter.
What is the coolest thing that you believe you have experienced?
Coolest thing I have experienced, I think, honestly, my career path. I think that has been the coolest part of my life and something I'm proud of.
I love that. What is a gadget you can't live without?
Ooh, gadget I can't live without. I have a mini blender and it's my tiny little NutriBullet. It's my favorite thing.
Song you would want in your biopic?
Oh, probably Heroes by David Bowie.
Good one. Good pick. I have a lot of questions like with different songs, and so I'm going to need to
Hmm.
put together a playlist and share it on Spotify.
That would be so cool.
Definitely. What is a good habit of yours?
Good habit. I walk every day. I just get outside at some point during the day. It really clears my head, and I think everyone should take a walk.
Oh yeah. Last thing that you Googled.
Oh, well, now I have to check. All right. The last thing that I Googled was how to help muscle soreness from exercise, which, by the way, it is hydrating and 8 hours of sleep.
Good to know. What is something that you've never done that might surprise people to find out about you?
This is surprising because I grew up right outside Washington, D.C., and now I live in Boston. I have never seen Times Square,
Okay.
despite living on the East Coast my whole life, and I have been to New York City, never seen Times Square.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Okay. I know where I'm going to send you. If you could only drink one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
All right, this isn't the best for me, but I love Celsius, the energy drinks. I think they are so delicious, and I would choose that over coffee, over Red Bull any day.
Wow. Someone connect Brooke with Celsius.
Yeah, Celsius official. Hit me up.
Ad. Just kidding. This isn't an ad. And question number 13, something you wish you could experience again for the very first time.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that is a really good question, actually. I wish I could rewatch the movie Interstellar for the very first time. I think
Ooh,
the first time I watched it, I was too young to fully understand the message. And now that I'm older, I wish I could just sit back and really take it all in for the very first time.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Yay. Thank you so much for doing the baker's dozen.
Those
That
are
was
fun.
yay. I'm so glad you liked them.
Hmm.
All right, Brooke, this has been an incredible conversation. I could keep talking about the non-traditional workforce forever. So for anyone who has felt a connection with what Brooke has shared, interested in learning more about your personal chef work, where can people connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my work Instagram, which is where I post more of my food and, cooking content, is at Red Fennel Kitchen. That's also the same name as the website, redfennelkitchen.com. And if you're interested in reaching out to me directly, redfennelkitchen at gmail.com is the email. And I would love to get in contact with anyone.
Perfect. And I will also put all of that as linkables so people can just click on them. Awesome. Thank you so much, Brooke. This has been
Awesome.
an incredible conversation. And I am so glad we got to chat about non-traditional work. Thank you.